Carnivore diet health benefits is the topic of today's video. It's going to be a long list of my health problems I've had through the years, and you're going to find out at the end which ones carnivore has corrected. What's shaking bacon? We got a lot of information to cover in today's video. Lots of people ask why I do the carnivore diet, because it seems pretty extreme. And they say it's pretty restrictive. How could you do such a restrictive way of eating? And it's like, well, you know what? The answer is pretty simple, because that makes me feel good. I feel good when I do this way of eating. My joints feel good. My health problems have been under control, and my weight is going down. Albeit I'm at a plateau, but it's still going down. I've lost 150 pounds doing a zero-carb diet. And since I've been doing carnivore steady for the last year and a half, I've lost about 80 or 90 of those pounds. So in today's video, we're going to get into this. I'm going to try and be as fast as I can with these conditions because there's a lot of them. So the first place I can think of to start is my weight. I wasn't a big kid when I was under 10 years old, but around the time I was 10 or 11, I started putting on weight, and I started putting on weight fast. So by the time I was 16, I was well over 350 pounds. I was probably closer to 4. Now, in my opinion, I personally think, and I can't prove it, what started all that weight gain wasn't a lack of activity, because I was an active kid. I played all the time at recess. I rode my bicycle everywhere. I was not shy when it came to activity. But when I was 10, I got a really bad flu. And while I had the flu, this idiot doctor, and I'm sorry, but he was an idiot. It turned out he gave me a flu shot while I had the flu. I didn't know any better. My mom didn't know any better. Unfortunately, this doctor didn't know any better either. And ever since then, I've had a lot of health problems. Now, I didn't put that together when I was a kid. I actually didn't learn until a couple years ago how dangerous that was. I mean, that was a very dangerous thing for him to do. You're not supposed to get a flu shot when you already have the flu. I don't think it's a coincidence that I wasn't long after that I started putting on weight, and a lot of weight, really fast. Now, I also had constipation. I didn't know what that was when I was a kid, but I just know it took me a long time to go to the bathroom. By the time I was at the end of my 17th year, I lost, probably about 100 plus, maybe 150 pounds. I went down to a very lean 204 pounds. I was very muscular. I probably bounced up to about 220 pounds, between 215 and 220, and leveled off there for a couple years. So my energy was really good. I was very muscular. I lost a lot of weight exercising. I had a regular diet. Like a teenager. I ate a ton of food. So I have to admit, I also had a sugar addiction from the time I can remember. So by the time I was 18 and I hit my best weight and best physical fitness of my life, I did it out exercising a bad diet. They say you can't do that, and I'm living proof that you can. People will say, yeah, but you have the metabolism of a teenager. And my response to that is, no, I didn't, because when I was a teenager at 16 years old, I was 350 pounds. That is crazy. And I did that between the ages of 10 and 16. Before that, I was not a big kid. It was around that time when I was 17 or 18, I started getting leg cramps. I started doing Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do, so there was a bit of kicking in that, and I started getting leg cramps around that time. My oldest brother used to get leg cramps. It's just something we used to have to deal with. It was usually just the hamstring, so you learn to live with something like that. It wasn't too bad, but it would be a problem later in life. By the time I was in my late 30s and definitely through my 40s, I started getting really bad leg cramps in my adductors, the insides of the legs, and my hip flexors in the front of my legs. And when those muscles cramped, it would take me right out. It was really bad. So I eventually learned how to manage that. When I lost all that weight, I had a lot of loose skin. By the time I was 20, that loose skin went away. When I bounced up that 15 pounds, after I hit my bottom at 204 and I went up about 15 pounds, that loose skin, which was really bad, like I had to always keep my shirts tucked in, but it really went away when I was about 20 years old. Right around the time I turned 19, I developed allergies, seasonal allergies. I think it was triggered by mold. Cats and seasonal allergies like pollen in the air really got to me in the spring. When I was 20, I developed hypothyroidism. That same crappy doctor that gave me that flu shot when I was 10 years old refused to accept the fact that it was hypothyroidism, even though I was pretty confident that it was. Well, it turned out I was right. And he had to make a very humbling call to me afterwards so that I could go on some medication. So I've been on thyroid medication for 27 years now. When I was 25, I had put on a lot of weight. By the time I was 25, I was finishing college, and I put on 50 pounds from all the sitting I was doing in college. I wasn't exercising. I was eating a very bad diet. I developed snoring, really loud snoring. I developed heartburn. I was working nights at a factory while I was in college through the days. I always worked as a bouncer when I was in college, and eventually when I quit that for steady employment, working nights took its toll on me, and that was one of the reasons why I had heartburn. But I also put on another 50 pounds from working steady nights and going to school through the days. It was a really tough schedule, but I had to do it for a short while. When I was 25 or 26, I developed chronic back pain for 2 solid years. I had really bad back pain. I know now what the main trigger was. Inflammation was a big part of that. The original trigger for that, I think, was when I was about 20 years old. I was lifting a pail of cement, and it threw my back out because of the angle I was lifting it on. But I went 2 solid years without usually more than a few days to maybe a couple weeks worth of relief. I was walking like a question mark for the first couple years of my practice as a massage therapist. I used to have to get the receptionists to walk on my back in between clients because my back was so bad I couldn't stand upright. Right around that time, my doctor checked out my cholesterol and found out I had high cholesterol, low good cholesterol, and he said my thyroid was out. My medication needed to be tweaked because through the years, my medication had to get stronger and stronger and stronger until I was eventually on one of the strongest doses of thyroid medication. And he said, your cholesterol's out because your thyroid is out. We'll correct the thyroid, and then we'll be able to correct the cholesterol problem, hopefully. This was a different doctor I was dealing with, and he was much better. It was also around that time I developed gout. Gout was really painful. I woke up one morning with the weight of a blanket over my foot that was excruciating, and that's like classic gout. The doctor thought it might not be gout because my levels were barely elevated above the high-end normal. So he was like, yeah, you're out of the good range, but you know what? Barely, though. I can't see this being gout. Well, it turned out there's a link between gout and metabolic syndrome, which is probably what I had at the time, but no doctor diagnosed me with it. By this point, my leg cramps were becoming very serious and very regular. They were still only in the hamstrings, but they were happening almost daily. It was pretty bad. Also, when I was 27, I got diagnosed with adrenal fatigue. So all those years of working nights, going to school through the days, or working nights at my night job and also working days at my day job, yeah, I was just a workaholic. You know what happened was I burnt the candle at both ends for way too long, and it finally caught up with me now that I had a normal schedule. So high-dose vitamin C took care of that adrenal fatigue. I got sciatica when I was 32. Now, I still get sciatica every now and then if I overdo it on certain exercises, but doing a carnivore diet has managed that because I just generally have less inflammation in my body. Even though my body flirts with sciatica every now and then, it's not too bad. I didn't realize till my late 30s that I had arthritis, and that was the first time I went to an extremely low-carb diet. It was doctor supervised. It was also a low-fat diet. It was virtually no fat, and it was no carbs. It was basically a carnivore diet with very restricted amounts of meat that I could eat, and the doctor wanted it very lean, so I was having lots of chicken and turkey, and I could have all the lettuce and cucumbers I wanted. So it was virtually a carnivore diet. I had lettuce in there, but it was all zero carb. But when I first started that, I noticed in the first few days my arthritis in my ankles was just, I didn't realize it was arthritis, but my ankles burned and the pain got worse and worse each day. The ache got bad by the end of each day. And by day 4, it's like the humidity broke after a storm and my joints felt amazing. That was the first time I experienced what it was like to become fat adapted and go into ketosis. Now, by the time I was 40, I had done this diet with a doctor. I had lost 180 pounds. I went from 465 pounds down to 300 pounds with that doctor. And then I stopped seeing him after about 5 months. Yes, I did that in 5 months. That was the winter of 2013-14. I did the rest of the year, probably about another 7 months. On my own, I lost another 15 pounds. So I went down to 285 pounds. So it's 180 pounds I lost. But by the time I was 40, I put on some of that weight. I actually put on about 2/3 of that weight loss because I started introducing carbohydrates back into my diet. And with that, the addiction came back. And so after a year of being off carbs, I learned a valuable lesson to not flirt with that. So after a year of being carb free, when I started introducing it, I just fell off the wagon and I just started having carbs all the time. And within another year, I put on most of that weight. I put on about 2/3 of the weight that I lost. So I developed pre-diabetes at that point. My doctor said, yeah, your blood sugar is really high, so you're pre-diabetic. And I probably had been pre-diabetic for years, but this new doctor I had started actually checking that out and noticed it. But he didn't notice I had metabolic syndrome, clearly. And 3 months after that diagnosis, that was from a physical, he said, aside from your cholesterol and the pre-diabetes and being a big guy, everything else is pretty good, actually. 3 months after that, I had a massive heart attack. So the reason why I had a heart attack was, of course, lifestyle was a part of it. Family history was a part of it. My father had a very serious heart attack when he was in his mid-50s. He had a minor heart attack in his late 40s. So I have a family history with that. But what the real trigger was, believe it or not, was the anti-inflammatories I was taking for my gout. I was taking Mobicox and Meloxicam, and I was taking triple strength twice a day just to manage my gout, because since I lost all that weight, that 180 pounds, I was dealing with gout virtually every day. So after that heart attack, 3 stents later, I was fine. I actually bounced back really fast from that. I wasn't really down and out with that heart attack. My kidney stones took me out more than my heart attack did. So after the heart attack, they put me on baby aspirin, and aspirin, as it turns out, aggravates gout. So now between trying to do zero carb dieting and then the aspirin, I was getting gout all the time. Now, this had been a regular occurrence for me, fighting it almost daily, definitely weekly, from the time I lost all that weight when I was in 2013 and 14 till 2020 when I finally figured out what to do about it. They also put me on 2 blood pressure medications, and I was really annoyed that they did that because I didn't need it because I never had high blood pressure. But sure enough, when I went off of those meds, doctor supervised, of course, I developed high blood pressure because that's what happens when you take those meds. So not only did I have high blood pressure, I also had a high heart rate by this point. So now I was up to around 400 pounds or so. I wasn't using a scale, but I could tell by this one suit that I was wearing often at the time, I was right around the 400 pound mark. And I was at the point where the suit didn't fit me anymore. So I was probably at least 400 pounds. So I put on most of that weight that I had gotten up to when I was originally at my highest, 465 pounds or so. And by the time I was 44, I developed kidney stones. Now these kidney stones are made from gout. My uric acid levels were high and they were backing up in my kidneys. So I basically got gout in my kidneys. So I had this other problem at 44 where I was in a lot of pain and it was excruciating and lasted a few months. Now I finally found a way to manage that. And one of the things that allowed me to stick to a carnivore diet was taking a product called berberine. I found out there was a link between metabolic syndrome and gout. And one of the problems with metabolic syndrome is high blood sugar. So it turned out my fasting blood sugar was good because I was doing carnivore, but whenever I ate, my blood sugar was still spiking up too high, which screwed around with my insulin. And so when I took berberine, it lowered my blood sugar, which kept my insulin more managed, and I was able to move forward with the carnivore diet. So at this point, one of my big major health problems was managed under control, and I could just fly with this way of eating. And I was doing pretty good with it for a long time. Now my dog got sick and I relapsed. But since then, I've been very consistent with it for about 1.5 years. And I can't see myself ever going back. Once you get to this point, there's no going back. I can't even risk having a lick, taste, or bite of anything that I can't have because I can't manage that sugar and carbohydrate addiction. It's easy for me to abstain like a smoker. A smoker can't have a cigarette after they've quit after 1.5 years. They know if they do, they'll probably go back to smoking. It's the same thing with me with sugar. Same thing with a lot of people out there. Some people are moderators, and for them, it's not a struggle. But other people, they have to abstain. I've never struggled with alcohol or drugs in my life. It was never an issue. It's never something I craved. But sugar, yeah, that was something I always had to deal with. So there were 3 problems with me especially. I was always an emotional eater. I always wanted to eat and make myself full every time. And I was just addicted to sugar. That's a bad combination. And I also had body dysmorphia because I can never tell how I looked when I was on my way up or down in weight. I couldn't tell in the mirror. When I lost all that weight when I was a teenager, I went down to an athletic 204 pounds. I couldn't see the difference from my 360 pound version of myself to my 205 pound version. I just couldn't see it. I could see it in photos, but I couldn't see it in the mirror. So let's look at what health conditions are gone. Since I started this carnivore diet. Now, the ones that are left, some of those are really under control to the point where they're not really an issue, but I technically still have them. Heart disease, for example. I'm going to have that the rest of my life. In fact, after you've had a heart attack, I have stents in my heart. Stents only last about 10 years, and I'm 7 or 8 years into that 10 years. But look at everything. Look at everything that this has changed with my lifestyle. All these health problems that have been managed and gone. And here's the crazy part. I'm still overweight. I still have about another 80 pounds to go. And these health problems, most of them cleared up in the first few months of this. So before I lost a substantial amount of weight doing this carnivore diet in the last 1.5 years so consistently without a cheat of a lick, taste, or bite, that's the key for me. And it might be the key for you. Not a lick, taste, or bite of anything you can't have. And what you'll notice is your health problems, if your situation goes anything like mine, your health problems will get managed before the weight loss is too substantial. Some people don't even need it for the weight loss, but you see this list right here. This list is the reason why I stick with this diet. The benefits I get from doing this diet is well worth the restrictions I have with the foods that I can eat. Now, not many people have had as many health problems as I've had, but they're still going to get relief with the ones that they have had, and they're going to find that it's just worth moving forward with this. So this is your incentive to try and manage as many of these as I can. Try and knock as many off the list. I feel like I'm at the point like I was after college when I was racked up with debt and I started paying off all my debts. I had all these lines of credit and credit card debts that I had, probably accumulated up to about $14,000. And I worked hard over the next couple years to pay that down. And it was really nice when I got to check one of those debts off the list. It was one of the greatest feelings in the world to really start getting out of debt. And I tell you, it's the same thing doing this carnivore diet. Seeing this list get smaller and smaller as I move forward with this makes it worthwhile. Even though I've hit a plateau right now, it's still worthwhile because I feel good. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know what health problems you've noticed go away or get managed or go into remission. So mention it in the comments. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I really appreciate it. I'm trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers. I think that'd be pretty cool. Nice round number. So thanks for watching till the end. Take care.